Right, let's get into it. Preview for Wolves this weekend. It's a big game for Liverpool. Arsenal have got their results. Liverpool, well, they've had a couple of really poor results in a row. Now, not that I would really call that Everton game all that poor. I think it was a poor performance. I think actually getting 1 point away, but 2 points dropped. I think it's all about how you frame it. And I get that there's been some fallout. I think Slot has handled the fallout from that game really well, though we will truly see how he's handled the fallout from that game once we've seen the Wolves performance, right? I think this Liverpool team are a little bit annoyed with themselves at the moment after the poor performance against Everton and after the Plymouth weekend. This side really need to get a grip on that, and they've had a couple of slides this season, but with Arsenal, and they were very convincing points, I'd actually say, especially against a team like Leicester, where you would have thought, well, will they drop away? Let's see. They shifted it in just the right way. They've come back with great energy. Liverpool are going to have a really intense February. There's going to be the Champions League games. Then they're going to move into March, and that's going to be slightly less intense, you would hope. And I'm not saying therefore they go out the Champions League, but I just mean you just don't want it to be as intense. If you're not at the FA Cup, things like that definitely helped. And I think this Liverpool side are still looking at the season and thinking, we don't need to let this slide. Like, it's not going to slide in the first place, but we don't need to let this slide. There are a lot of people speculating on fitness, all those kind of things. I think they've managed the fitness a lot better this season. And I think the real issue has been Trent coming in and out of the side. What can we do to manage his fitness, but also what can we do to manage his involvement? Fair enough. I think there's a real need for Trent to consistently be in, or at least have a consistent fullback. We've had two lack of consistent fullbacks there. I'll talk about that in the starting 11 in just a second. And then the midfield has really kept Liverpool in this multiple times now. I think the battle in midfield was something that went massively underrated the other day. And Everton won that because they were more than willing to go down very quickly, whereas Liverpool were trying their best to get to the Everton goal ASAP and get the game beyond them. I think multiple times you saw Liverpool's best midfield is McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and there is no question about that for me right now. The shift in the game and the shift in the emphasis is really important, but I don't think that starting Curtis Jones ahead of Szoboszlai is currently the solution. I don't think the starting Elliott ahead of Szoboszlai is currently the solution. I think what you want is that early intensity. You want to take the sting out of the game from the opposition. You want to overwhelm them and then shift your emphasis somewhere else, and you end up being able to undermine, just like what happened in the Everton game, right? The frustration for me that comes from the Everton game, I guess, is that we will have emotionally exhausted ourselves a little bit there. The fans will feel a little bit deflated. The fans will feel a little bit like there is a little bit more pressure now. The fans will feel like they need to buoy the players again, right? Anfield is awaiting them this weekend. They had the Plymouth game, and then they had the Everton game. Time to get to Anfield and just grip on. Elsewhere, I think City and Arsenal returning back to form will be related, and people will relate it back to what Liverpool are doing at the moment. They'll say it's putting pressure on Liverpool. They'll say it's something that, is Liverpool are going to be hunted down, whatever. This Liverpool side, all they need to do is focus on the games that they need to play. We don't need to worry about Arsenal. There's been a lot of talk in a lot of my Liverpool groups about Arsenal. There's been a lot of talk in my Liverpool groups about all these other sides at the moment, right? For some weird reason, we're not focusing on this team and how good this team are right now. And I get it. Like, obviously, I've been speaking on my own channel about the future of Liverpool. And a few comments, actually, I thought were really interesting was, don't get ahead of yourself. And I have mentioned that in a few of these videos. There are times where not only do we have to discourage ourselves from getting ahead of ourselves, but we have to look at what other people are saying you are deliberately trying to take Liverpool ahead of itself so that it assumes that the league title was won, so that it assumes that the Champions League is going to be fairly straightforward. I know we qualified from the group stages and there was like a 20% chance that we won the Champions League based on all of the calculations and based on the route that the computer thought that we would take, etc. That's 1 in 5, first of all. 1 in 5 being relatively good odds compared to everyone else. But Arsenal had a 1 in 10, or just better than a 1 in 10 chance. So that just puts it all into perspective for you. I know that's double what Arsenal have got, roughly. But the point is, right, having double what Arsenal have means that we actually still, that's just because we expect it. And I think we've got a model in our heads as to how we can win the Champions League, because we've seen it under Klopp. We've seen it under Benitez. We've seen it under multiple different managers now back through the ages. We have a better model of winning the league. Whereas I think winning the Champions League, whereas I think in winning the league at the moment, our idea, we haven't really got like a vision as to what it looks like. I don't think we expected this season. We're in somewhat of uncharted territories and unfamiliar waters at the moment because it's very different to the Klopp era. It feels very different to the Klopp era. There is an unexpected element to it where we thought, well, there'd be a rebuild. We've got to wait for a couple of years. And now people are beginning to talk about the rebuild. I've certainly spoken about the rebuild on this channel. But I think it underestimates how good this current Liverpool team are, how much quality is in the side. Anyway, I don't even need to get into that. Wolves are a side who come to Anfield on the back of 2 wins in 5 at the moment. I just want to refer to my notes because I don't want to get this kind of thing wrong in the first place, right? But let me just bring Wolves up, right? They won against Blackburn. They won against Villa, which was actually pretty good in the first place, although that is somewhat of a Midlands derby. But then they had losses against Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal. The last win they had before that was Bristol City. Then they lost against Forest and they drew against Spurs. The games where they've turned up and the games where I think they've done particularly well, Cunha has played particularly well. But then you've also found that within that, they've won the midfield battle, right? And I think obviously they lost the midfield battle against Newcastle. Great. They lost the midfield battle against Chelsea, obviously, and they lost it against Arsenal. The real key is going to be against this side to win that midfield battle. Do not allow them to isolate our players out on the right or out on the left. We're going to have to play, I think we're going to have to play Conor Bradley for that reason. And I think we're going to need legs out there. So I think we need Tsimikas as well. My concern would be what we rotate out on the fullback side of things with Andy Robertson. I think actually Robertson had a pretty good game against Everton. Not that it was incredible, I thought it was a good game. I actually think we were relatively weak on that side, but I think he had a good game in the sense that he felt solid. It was through the middle, really, that we struggled. And I know that last minute winner was scored on his side, but, come on. The point being, right, I think we need to work out what the best strategy for playing and rotating Robertson and Tsimikas is at this point in the season, because clearly we favour neither of them. And both of them have good qualities, but neither of them are particularly strong. Which player would you play, is broadly my question, against a team like Wolves? I personally would look for the pace in someone like Tsimikas, but that would mean ahead of him changing things up a little bit or, trying to find an alternative. Backline for me. Alisson, Van Dijk, Konate, Trent, no. Bradley, yes. Robertson, no. Tsimikas, yes. So that's a backline with Bradley and Tsimikas. The fitness of both Bradley and Trent is under question at the moment, so I think we do have to rotate those guys either way, and I don't think we've got anyone we can bring up from the youth, which worries me a little bit. And then the midfield, I think we have to start with our strongest midfield, even though I know that obviously that's not a great thing. I know the temptation would be to rotate against Wolves, and especially if you look at the standings for Wolves right now, Wolves are 17th, and I've just spoken about Arsenal playing West Ham in another video on another channel. I think we just need to acknowledge that Liverpool are going to have to rotate at some point, but I think we have to start our strongest midfield in games, try and put the game beyond someone like Wolves, play McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, and then rotate in the likes of Curtis Jones, etc., etc. People are kind of picking up little injuries between games at the moment. The reason I would currently start our strongest midfield is because I think, first of all, that's the most reliable shape and formation that we have, but I'm also thinking of bringing Jota back in. Bring Jota back in, have what we know to be familiar shapes that we started the season with, right? And bring in some of that familiarity, bring in some of the spark that Jota brings, and then later on again, bring in Nunez. Gakpo starts on the left. I think we'll rotate with Luis Diaz in the long run. And then Mo Salah obviously starts on the right. I think with Salah and his numbers and his influence, I think it's going to be great to see what happens with him. I also think in the last game, Ait-Nouri and those guys, well, they were looking to eat Salah, and at times I think they actually got the better of him, to be honest. I was actually a little bit disappointed with their overall performance in the last game. In the last game against Wolves, that is. I think this Wolves team are hurting a little bit. There's probably a couple of players looking in there and thinking, can I get a move? Can I move on? We'll just about stay up. What happens next? The frustration for me is, I think, at the moment, we've played games, and the real danger is we've played games where we've underestimated some of our opposition, and Wolves strike me as one of those teams we could underestimate because we've got game against Villa, game against City coming up. Big games, massive games actually. If we are going to be winning this league, we need to be banking points against teams like Wolves. You cannot afford to lose against those sides. Arsenal just won against Leicester. Look at Leicester's form. City are currently beating Newcastle very convincingly, and I don't obviously see City as a title threat. I don't think that point swing is enough of a point swing that they can bridge that gap. Sure. And my point would be, this Liverpool side need to kind of get back on the road. It was a start of a really difficult set of fixtures, and we actually started really well against the likes of Brentford, and you saw multiple games where things were positive. You saw the Nunez goals, there are a couple of shifts in the formation. We need to begin to move that way again. I think Chiesa should be coming on as a sub. Diaz should be coming on as a sub. We need to be emphasising the shift in the game and catching Wolves off guard in the way that we did with Everton. I think that was one thing that really got overlooked in the game tactically because we lost it so late. We shifted things tactically and it got the game in our favour. And I think from there on out, Liverpool actually looked relatively self-assured. There are a couple, obviously apart from those weird decisions, that weird run of random events, that's not really my point there. The point is the tactical shift that Slot is able to bring in. Obviously, the players sometimes rely on that, but I don't think we need to rely on that. What we need to rely on is when we do make that tactical shift to make sure that we enact it in the way we did against Everton and then shut up shop. Wolves is a great way to start that. I think we should be looking to get 3. Obviously, we should be looking to get 3 points against Wolves, but I think we should be looking to get things back on track with a win against Wolves, hit Villa strong, and then go into the weekend, hopefully, still with a good gap to the top of the league. It's a big couple of weeks coming up here, guys. Let me know how you're feeling at the start of this. I know there will be some trepidation because of how teams like Arsenal and Man City are currently performing and what seems like a return to a bit of the mean for both of those teams. What's happening with Liverpool? Some people are saying Liverpool are burning out, but I'm not quite sure that I believe that. And I want to see some sort of evidence for that. Some people are saying it's the same as it happened under Klopp, etc., etc. But we've played our teams very differently this season. We've played with very different intensity, and we've played with very different kind of tactics that don't burn the players in the same kind of way. So I'm not sure that I quite believe that, but I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. At the moment, I think there are a couple of teams who sit deep and have worked out how to play against Liverpool, but I don't think that means there's a burnout for us. Equally, Arsenal have just had a 10-day warm weather training trip, and we have not. Hitting this part of the season, you just want to be strong. Both the Everton game and the Plymouth game, I hope, act as warnings against losing a game like this against Wolves. I will chat to you guys after the game tomorrow, and I will see you in a little while. Much love. Bye.